But I'm sure what everyone is waiting to hear, sadly, the public health team have advised that given the Shepparton outbreak and the fact that at least one person travelled to Bendigo and potentially others travelled beyond, that is to say there's a very significant risk of transmission right across regional Victoria, not just in that Goulburn Valley area. From 1 p.m. today, all of regional Victoria will move to the same lockdown conditions as exist in Melbourne right now, with one important exception. The curfew will not operate in regional Victoria because I have no advice, given the disparity between the risks in Melbourne and the risks in regional Victoria. I have no advice to put a curfew on in regional Victoria. So from 1 p.m. today, and we know that is a very quick, and that's not a lot of notice, we fully acknowledge that, but this virus moves so fast and there is a significant risk out of both the cases we know about in Shepparton, what we don't yet have confirmed but we suspect has happened in Shepparton and beyond. This virus has made its way from Sydney to New Zealand, for heaven's sake. We therefore shouldn't be having any of these debates about whether the whole of the country of Victoria is at risk. The judgment of our public health experts is that it should be statewide, and on that basis, that lockdown, those 5 reasons to leave, will apply to all of regional Victoria, just as it does apply to all of Melbourne. I absolutely regret that that's the case. That's the decision we have to make, but that is the advice we've received, and that none of us have the luxury of ignoring the science or ignoring the evidence and the recommendations of our public health team. Now, in terms of some further changes to rules as they operate in Melbourne, we have seen, and Jerome can speak to this in more detail, we have seen a number of transmissions in and around childcare centres. We have seen a very large number of young people, and some very young people, become infected with this virus. This is a feature of these outbreaks. It's a feature very much of Delta and a feature of 2021 as it compares to 2020. And not just here, but in the ACT, in and around Sydney, and indeed right throughout New South Wales. So I'm announcing further changes to childcare. We will move to a permit system where only authorised workers will be able to send their kids to childcare, and those who have vulnerable children. We will work through all the detail of that over the course of the weekend. There'll be exact words up on the website. There'll be a process for people to follow, but it's essentially going back to the process that we followed last year, which was very successful. I know challenging, but very, very successful. We have got to limit the number of kids that are in our childcare centres. We have got to limit the amount of movement that is occurring that involves our smallest children. There is also some recommendations which Brett can speak to in relation to masks, not just for older kids and adults, but for primary school aged children as well. Not a legal requirement, but an advisory for younger kids. And I'll let Professor Sutton speak to that in a bit more detail. There are also some changes. Those childcare arrangements apply statewide. There are also some changes to industry settings as they exist in Melbourne. A number of high-risk industries will not be able to operate at 100%. They will have to reduce, just as the construction sector has done. Construction will be reduced to 25% across the whole state, so that'll happen in regional Victoria. There'll be a little bit of time for that to occur. We will work with industry to deliver that outcome. But things like abattoirs, meat processing centres, very large supermarket distribution centres, cool stores, things of that nature, exactly the same settings as were changed last year. They will be under new arrangements to limit movement and to limit the risk of widespread infection. In Melbourne, they will move to those settings as part of the announcements I'm making today. I can't rule out further adjustments to those industries in regional Victoria, but I'm not announcing any of those as of this press conference. We're looking at that, and if we have to do more there, we will. So in essence, regional Victoria from 1 o'clock today, same rules as Melbourne, except there's no curfew. Curfew remains, and all the other rules remain in Melbourne. There are then some industry-specific changes in Melbourne. We may need to go further than that and make some of those statewide, but we're not announcing those today. We will reach out and speak with all those industry stakeholders and make sure that they're fully briefed. We will have also an authorised worker permit system that operates just like it does in Melbourne in regional Victoria. But just as there was a grace period to go and get those permits in metropolitan Melbourne just a few weeks ago, there will be the same grace period in regional Victoria. So from tomorrow and through not before midnight Monday, there'll be time to get a permit, but only authorised workers will be able to leave the home if they've got a permit and are on that list and are authorised to not be working from home. So there's quite a lot in that, I know. Essentially, it is the same rules applying across the state because we have virus across the whole state, and we need to limit movement, to limit the spread of the virus. There'll be, I know, lots of questions that come out of that. We will reach out to every single stakeholder, every single interest group, all of those professional associations and others, as we always have. We'll be indebted to you guys for the role you play in getting those messages out to people so that there's clarity. But there'll be common sense from an enforcement point of view. We know this is a big switch up in regional Victoria. People need to follow the rules. But of course, we do understand that it's just not possible to give people a very long notice period. I apologise for the inconvenience of that. There's simply not a choice but to follow the advice and to act as we have today.